Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing bizarre reasons your ex reconnects with you. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Check out my socials for extra content. The links are in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing bizarre reasons your ex reconnects with you. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, it can sometimes be the most bizarre reason that gets your ex to think of you again. In today's podcast, I'm discussing 3 bizarre reasons that I've been told by dumpers that made them think of their ex and eventually reconnect with them. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is social media memories. Now this is probably the least bizarre on today's list, albeit it's still very random in how things played out. And this is a true story that I was told by a dumper about how they and their ex reconnected. Now, social media memories is something which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Irrespective of the apps you like to use, most social media platforms now have a memory context built into them, meaning that photos or videos or whatnot are shown again to you so long into the future, maybe 3-year anniversary and beyond. Well, this is a story about how I know of a dumper who reconnected with their dumpee, and it was all based on these social media memories. Now, they were shown memories from their past relationship. I believe it was every year or so. This is what they told me. I think it was each year that they were shown photos or videos was highlighted to them, saying this was a memory from their past. And these memories were obviously good memories. The fact that they'd been posted on social media in the first place suggested it was a good time that was being had. And sure enough, the photos which were being seen brought back those positive memories through the trigger, the context of thinking back to what exactly was taking place during that time, which was a good point in the relationship. Now, this wasn't just one photo or video. This was multiple photos and videos, and it was shown to them multiple times over the years. And this is where this particular story becomes bizarre, because we're talking a long time. We're talking 4 years. 4 years later, post-breakup, when this person ended the relationship, it got to the stage where they felt they wanted to reach out to their dumpee. And it was brought on, from what I've been told, by these social media memories every so often being shown to them. Now, it wasn't just the memories of what was going on during that time, but it was also how good and happy both of them were looking. Obviously smiling towards the camera, but also the physicality of how their dumpee was looking. Now, I thought it was interesting because so many years down the line, there was no guarantee how the dumpee would look anymore. But this seemingly was one of the reasons which pulled the dumper into wanting to reach out, because during the interim, that they'd never met anyone who they felt as physically attracted to as they did their ex. And when they continually were shown these photos or videos, this was something which really pulled on them. They, as a dumper, had been in a relationship with the pinnacle of a person physically, as they saw it, and yet, since the breakup which they instigated, they'd never found anybody that they felt such physical attraction to. So social media memories is something that lots of you listening can probably connect with and resonate with. If you have been dumped, or if you are the dumper indeed, you will likely be shown these memories unless you have switched them off, turned off notifications, or whatever you need to do. If you haven't done these things, they're going to be showcased to you every so often, whether that's every year or whatever the platform you use tends to do. But as we can see from this particular situation, social media memories over a very long period of time pulled on a dumper enough for them to want to reach out to their dumpee, and this led to both dumper and dumpee reconnecting and getting back into a relationship. And this is why I will never say never. Never say never, because you never know what the future holds. And even though I have seen through my own research that the chances of getting your ex back decreases once we go beyond a year, there is always the possibility of a random, crazy, bizarre reconnection further down the line. So never say never, but please don't hold on to these possibilities in a way which holds you back. You've got to continue to live your life. You've got to focus on you, move forward, make your own new connections, and definitely don't be waiting for something which might not happen. There is no guarantees, but it is important to showcase that even if you think, well, there's no chance this could ever happen, there is always a chance. But just make sure it's not preventing you from living your life right now. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you have the new hype feature, please hype this video as well. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is a funeral. So just by listening to what point number 2 is, you can see that we are now moving into the extreme levels of bizarre. And this is certainly something that nobody will be wishing that they have to go through. But in this particular instance, some good came out of something which was clearly very sad. I was told the story by a dumper that they reconnected with their dumpee at a funeral. Now this was a funeral where they did both expect to see each other at. It was somebody who they both knew who had sadly died, and hence there was a good possibility that both of them would be attending. However, there was no communication, and it was more than a year post-breakup. I don't believe it was as long as we spoke about in point number 1, but I remember being told it was longer than a year. So again, another instance of where something beyond a year has triggered a reconnection, although nobody would want this to take place. A funeral, of course, is very, very sad, very, very upsetting, and this was somebody that both dumper and dumpee knew. So they both attend the funeral, they both somewhat expected the other to be there. However, this was not communicated beforehand, and there was no guarantee that they would actually speak, but they did talk at the funeral. When they saw one another, they felt it was the right thing to do. And I always say, if you bump into your dumper as a dumpee, if this is something that you can't avoid, you should try and speak. There is no point in putting your head down, turning away, crossing the road. It is not going to help you. Now, when we come to something as extreme as a funeral, of course, if your emotions are really heightened, then maybe you don't feel it is appropriate to talk. So use your common sense, but hopefully most of you won't be in this position that these two people found themselves in. But as I said, some good came out of something which was really sad. They spoke at the funeral and things progressed fairly quickly from there. Whether or not it was the emotions of the day being transferred almost into reconnecting in those emotions between one another, it's hard to say, okay? And this isn't something which, like I said, any of us should really hopefully have to go through in the way that it happened, but at least something good did take place, and therefore things moved very quickly from that point. From what I was told, the reconnection of dumper and dumpee happened in an official sense less than a month after the funeral. So the funeral takes place, they speak at the funeral, and literally just weeks after, within a month, they're actually officially back together. And it's been more than a year since the breakup. So this just shows again, even though I would hope that we don't meet at a funeral, because that is certainly not something that you want to be doing, there is always a chance you might meet your ex somewhere you don't expect. That is the point of point number 2. The thing we need to consider is it probably and hopefully won't be a funeral, but it could be somewhere you don't expect. I mean, to be fair, they did actually both somewhat think they could be there. So maybe this wasn't as big a shock as it maybe sounds from the outside. But you might see your ex somewhere that you really don't expect. Maybe you get on a bus and are sitting on there. Maybe you start a new job and they are there as well, and you never knew that they were there when you joined. These are just some other possibilities, of course, of an endless amount of where you might see your ex. It could be something a lot more casual. You walk into a shop and they just so happen to be round the corner. Okay, you're just doing your shopping. You take your shopping trolley, your basket, round the corner, the shopping cart, round the corner, and there your ex is. What do? Well, I do suggest that you smile, you say hi, but you keep going unless they stop you for a long conversation. If you can't avoid the eye contact, you should definitely say something. I'm not saying you have to have a long conversation unless your dumper clearly stops you, but you should say hi, you should say hello. And if there is a situation you're both in where it feels appropriate to say more than a few words, then you should do that as well. Use your common sense, but don't look away, don't run away, don't put your head down, don't look angry or awkward. This isn't going to help you. And as we've seen from point number 2, in the most unusual circumstances, reconnection might take place. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the build-up of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is delivery. Now this is a fascinating story that I was told by a dumper, which eventually led to them and their dumpee reconnecting and getting back together. Now I was told that obviously this person ended the relationship and we're now winding on time, not quite as far into the future as we've already spoken about. I was told this was about 6 months down the line. So 6 months post-breakup, the dumper, who had started a new job as a delivery driver, had to make a delivery to a house when, unexpectedly to them, their dumpee answered the door. Now this is where it becomes very, very unexpected. The dumpee had no idea that the dumper was a delivery driver, because 6 months ago when they were last together, that wasn't the case. The dumper had got a new job post-breakup. But even stranger still, the dumper didn't expect the dumpee to be answering the door because 6 months prior when they were together, the dumpee didn't live there. So 6 months post-breakup, the dumper has got a new job. The dumpee has moved house. Neither of them know this. There's no communication, no connections, no social media, nothing to tell one another in any way or give them a hint that one has a new job, one lives somewhere else, and yet they now meet face to face at the door because the dumpee has ordered something that the dumper is delivering. Now this would be a very awkward situation if you do not expect to see your ex at a door when you are delivering or whether you are answering. That's going to be a shock. Now what's really good news in this situation is that both of them managed to hold their frame, as it's known. They didn't fall into a situation where it became awkward, even though that would have been very, very understandable if one or both of them felt awkward, didn't know what to say, or quickly made their excuses and left. No, they actually managed to smile, say hi, and have a conversation, which then led to them reconnecting. From what I was told, this then created a situation where they reconnected on their social media, which previously had been severed, and this then led to them reconnecting and getting back together. It just shows, as I say, that you never really know when the story ends. Never say never. We don't know for certain what's around that next corner. We just need to focus on ourselves, and if something comes to us in this way, we deal with it at the time. Like I've said throughout today's podcast, don't wait around for these random crazy situations. They're random and crazy in my mind because they are so unique and rare. so it's not likely to happen to you. Maybe point number one, with the social media memories, that's more possible and more likely, but even then, after so long, it is not necessarily as likely, but it shows anything can happen, and you just need to make sure that you are ready by living your best life and making sure you're in the best position to reattract your ex if and when you see them again. Now, if you live in the USA and want to support my channel, please consider shopping at Calvin Klein using the affiliate link in the description. Calvin Klein is a fantastic brand to help both men and women look great and feel confident. As a Calvin Klein affiliate, I may earn a commission if you make a purchase at no extra cost to you. Thank you for your support.